It's Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Corey and Mason.
Hello, and thanks for sitting down with us. This is our third episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast, and I am one of your hosts, Mason Schmidt, here with my good friend, Corey Knudsen. As we get ready to talk about all things movies, we are a couple of Minnesota boys who love movies a little too much. Tonight, as per usual, we'll be talking about a variety of things, including what films we've seen lately, what movies are on the horizon, a little update on some physical media releases, as well as some current developments in the world of movies. But first, Corey, how have you been? And second, what are you drinking on the opposite end of the desk?
Dude, I've been good, man. Just coming off that crazy Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight that neither of us watched, but just saw highlights of. Saw Mike Tyson's ass in the interview.
Heard about Netflix crashing or stalling out there for a little bit.
Yeah, just I don't know. I don't even really care to go back and watch it.
No.
But yeah, so today what we're drinking is one of my personal favorites from Wild State Cider. Oh, fuck.
Thanks. That's nice.
So yeah, it is based out of Duluth, Minnesota, which is where I went to school. I went up to UMD for 4 years, so this was a constant place that I went with a lot of my friends up there. We are drinking the wild apple flavor today, which was formerly known as semi-dry. One of their more just kind of generic ciders, but one that I really like. I know you really like these too.
Yeah. Big fan of cider. I believe Wild State, honestly, was kind of like my foray into drinking cider, and every time I go up to Duluth, I'm sure to stop by just because they have a lot of good seasonal flavors that Allie and I both enjoy, so we're always getting a couple of cases before we come back down towards home. But yeah, so we'll be drinking Wild State for the remainder of this episode, keeping us hydrated as we talk about movies out. As per usual, we're going to start off with what we've seen lately, looking at Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, a documentary, one of the few documentaries going into this year that I was kind of immediately excited for, directed by Ian Bonnote and Peter Edgwai. Features interviews with Robin Williams, Glenn Close, and as well as members of Christopher Reeve's family and other friends. Synopsis: actor Christopher Reeve rises to stardom when he lands the role of Superman in the 1970s. When a horse riding accident leaves him paralyzed in 1995, Reeve spends the rest of his life searching for a cure for spinal cord injuries. I didn't know much about this film at the start of this year, but I think it was when CinemaCon was happening. They did a small little promotional thing there, and the trailer of this was then, I think, released, and I got to see it. And I'm a sucker for the 1978 Richard Donner Superman. It's one of my favorite superhero films. It's in my top 100 favorite films of all time. It's a movie that immediately makes me feel like a kid. The score by John Williams is iconic, and it's probably my favorite score in film history. The moment it comes on, I feel like a child, and I even in watching the documentary, the score kind of seeps in right at the beginning, and I just started tearing up, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be hard to sit down and to watch, just because of the emotion of it, which is definitely a standout. You do get a lot of good moments between his family and them talking about Christopher Reeve, but I think that the documentary does a great job at showing him as kind of a complex guy. He wanted desperately to have a big break. He was more of like a stage actor, and he wanted this big break. And there's a cool moment between, I think it was him and William Hurt, because they're in the same like stage group. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm interviewing for Superman," and he's like, "Don't do that. Don't take it. That's gonna ruin your career." And he was like, "No, this is gonna be like the jumping off point." And I don't know. There's a lot of cool moments and stories included within this documentary, just that paints out his entire life. He was a very physical guy. He loved being active, avid horseback rider, and then led to his injury, his spinal cord injury that left him in a chair. The film touches on a lot of different aspects of his life, and a lot after his accident, what his motivations were and to wanting to be able to walk again, wanting to be able to kind of push the boundaries as to what recovery looked like and the rehab looked like for an injury of this severity. Corey, I do want to throw it over to you, though. Have you heard about this documentary? Are you interested in seeing it? What do you think about Superman, the Christopher Reeve story?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing it. I know, like you said, Superman's a very important movie for you, so I definitely want to check it out and kind of just learn about stuff. I don't know much about Christopher Reeve's life, so I think it'd be really interesting just to get some of that info. Where did you watch it on?
Oh, I don't even remember. I ended up streaming it on something. Oh no, I think it's on Paramount Plus.
Is it? Okay.
Is it? Oh wow, I don't even remember where I watched it. I think it was Paramount Plus. I think it ended up streaming on there. So I did a little free trial, signed up, watched that. But it was a great watch. Very emotional. My one critique is that it did kind of sometimes, it wouldn't let an emotional moment breathe. They were kind of quick. The pacing is really good, but almost too good to a degree where I was like, I want a couple seconds to sit with what was just said, or to sit with this moment in his life, because the film does a good job at like mentioning good things about him and also bad things, and I think there is a good like full well-rounded human being that they're talking about, but I just wanted more time to like sit with kind of the more profound things that they were trying to say in it. Overall, I really did dig the documentary. It's probably one of my favorite documentaries in recent years. It kind of gave me that same like positive, hopeful outlook. As soon as the credits roll, it gave me that same outlook as Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Fred Rogers documentary, I think from 2019. It's easily one of my favorite documentaries in recent history. That, Won't You Be My Neighbor, Three Identical Strangers is good. But yeah, this is up there. I really would recommend checking it out. I don't think it's getting the biggest release. I briefly touched on the fact that they kind of have entered into a slightly wider release and it's been streaming a little bit more. So if you're able to sit down and catch this one, I would say definitely give it a look. But Corey, moving on to what you might have seen this past week.
Yeah, this week is, I mean, like we talked about last week, there was not a lot of big new releases besides Red 1, which neither of us saw.
Nope.
And probably won't see for a while. So this was actually a nice week for me, and I think for both of us to catch up on some stuff from earlier this year. One of them, for me, being I Saw the TV Glow, which is an A24. It was sort of marketed as a horror movie. It's not a horror movie. I went into it thinking it was, and it's, I don't know, there's some creepy sequences and like creepy visuals, but overall kind of more like a emo angsty drama.
Really selling it.
Yeah, I don't know. I if you can tell from my tone, I wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. It's directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. They also directed We're All Going to the World's Fair, which I haven't seen, but I know a lot of people really enjoyed that movie. It's kind of both of these are pretty smaller indie movies. The big notable star in this movie is Justice Smith, who was in the last couple Jurassic World movies, which I know you didn't see.
I didn't see. Was he in Dungeons and Dragons?
He was in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, he was like hither thither. That like he was like a warlock or I don't know.
He was, and in like, which I also didn't see, but Pokemon Detective Pikachu. He was the main kid. I own that movie on Blu-ray, and I have not watched it still. But he's kind of been popping up and stuff. Bridget Lundy Payne, who I wasn't familiar with before this one. And Fred Durst, lead singer of Limp Bizkit, who
is awesome.
I love Limp Bizkit, so great to see him pop up. Essentially, this movie is about Justice Smith, who is this teenager who is kind of a loner. He's in high school, and it mainly takes place in the 1990s. And he gets introduced to this TV show by another person in school, and they really connect over the show, and it spans decades as the show has an impact on his life and his friend's life. As far as positives, I will say that this movie visually looks incredible. The cinematography is great, and the thing I'm going to remember most about this movie is the colors, which maybe sound like a weird thing to say, but the color palette of this movie is insane. There's a lot of pinks and purples and kind of neon type colors that really pop in this movie.
Is it psychedelic at all looking, or is it more just neon?
In a couple sequences, but yeah, more so just kind of a neon look to it. And I thought the movie looked great. I think it's directed incredibly well. And yeah, so I like the filmmaking behind it. And I think there are some really interesting ideas in this movie. I don't know, I won't get into like full spoilers, but a plot point of this movie is kind of these two characters debating whether their lives are more connected to this TV show, like if they are actually a part of this show, and if their lives that we've been watching through the first like half of the movie is like not real and they're actually from this TV show. So that's kind of like an interesting idea, I think, but I don't think it's executed really well. And that's really my main issue with the movie. It's just, I think there's good ideas, and there's definitely some themes that I don't think I relate to personally. I think for some groups of people, this movie is really going to hit hard. So I think there's a lot of themes about your self-identity and suppressing who you really are, and about how you perceive things as a child versus how you perceive them as an adult. And some of the things hit for me and some of them didn't. And like I said, I think some people are going to watch this movie and like find maybe they're one of their favorite movies. But overall, it's a movie that I respected more than I liked, which you may hear a lot from some movies. I know Mason and I kind of say that to each other a lot, of just movies that we respect but don't necessarily personally connect to, and that was one of these movies for me.
Well, and I'm a big horror movie guy, and I remember when this movie was coming out, I was like, oh, maybe I go see the new horror movie, but it never, in the trailers at least, gave an outright horror movie vibe, which is fine. Some, like, the Joel Edgerton film,
It Comes at Night.
It Comes at Night.
Yeah.
That is marketed as a horror film, and it's not necessarily a horror film, but looking at it, I was like, oh, this looks like a horror film, and I was a little disappointed when it wasn't so, like, in-your-face horror. This film kind of has that same vibe to me, where I'm like, I'm sure it's being marketed as a horror film, because I'm sure the studio's like, I don't know what else to market it as.
Right.
And it kind of looks like it exists kind of in, like, a drama, thriller, coming-of-age story almost, and also horror dynamic or
it's interesting,
aspects to it.
Interesting you bring up that movie, because I actually thought about that movie as I was watching this. They're both A24 movies, and same with It Comes at Night. I think that cool ideas were presented in it, but they weren't executed as well, or like they set up things and they weren't really paid off, at least where I wanted them to go. So it kind of falls in that realm. Like I said, on a filmmaking level, very, very fun to look at. But it's one I'm glad I've seen, but I can't fully recommend it just for myself, I guess. Yeah.
And that's it's a movie I'll hopefully try and catch up on if we have another slow week coming up here. Like Corey said, with it being a slow release week this past weekend, and we both did not see Red One, it gave me more time to go back and revisit another animated film from earlier this year that I didn't see, which was Transformers 1. Directed by Josh Cooley, who was a former Pixar director, directed Toy Story 4. The film stars Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, Keegan-Michael Key, Scarlett Johansson, and a awesome little supporting performance by Steve Buscemi.
Hell yeah.
Synopsis: Transformers 1 is the untold origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron, better known as sworn enemies, but once they were friends who bonded like brothers, who changed the fate of Cybertron forever. It's a pretty bare-bones synopsis, but going into this film, that's kind of all I knew, is just, Optimus Prime is named Orion Pax, and Megatron is D16, I think, yeah. And it was, I didn't have the most excitement going into this one. I heard relatively good things. I know it wasn't widely seen. It's not doing gangbusters at the box office. It's already out on streaming, which is where I caught it. I really dug this movie, and this is coming from someone who has seen all of the Michael Bay Transformers films. I saw, was it Rise of the Beasts? I saw Bumblebee. So, and I've seen the original, the 1980s animated Transformers film, which is wild.
Crazy movie.
But I've served my time. I've done my nickel. I'm ready for Transformers 1. So I went into it, and I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was. The action was great. The animation was amazing. Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry really quickly came in and reimagined these roles in a way that I wasn't expecting. I remember seeing the trailers and hearing Chris Hemsworth's voice as this quasi-Optimus Prime character, and I was like, well, that's not Peter Cullen. That doesn't... He sounds so different, and I just couldn't get past it. But the movie, it works so well. Keegan-Michael Key and Scarlett Johansson are also there. They, for me, were a little bit more of a distraction. Corey, I know that you've seen Transformers 1. You saw it a little bit ago, too. What are your thoughts on some of the cast in this film? Also, overall thoughts with the movie and Transformers franchise as a whole?
Dude, I had a great time with this movie. I kind of saw this one late in theaters, like right at its tail end. I know you tried to see it, and the screen didn't work or something.
I tried to see it at a theater near us, and yeah, they never sitting in the theater waiting for it to start up, and they never really launched like the ad or the trailer package before the movie. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, well, the movie is supposed to start like 10 minutes ago. Trailers aren't even running. Like, what's going on? So I walk out, and they're like, oh, shit. So I'm like, all right, it's already late. I don't want to sit here and watch all, like, 30 minutes of trailers because they rebooted it, and the trailer package was at the front of it. I'm like, I don't want to sit here and watch those and then watch the movie. I'll just have to catch it another time. So, yeah, I had a failed attempt in theaters, and I had caught it on streaming, but...
Yeah, no, I was happy to see this one in theaters. The animation looks great. I think it looks cool. I don't think the trailers did the best job of selling this movie. I don't know. It felt like the trailers geared it more towards kids, which, like, I understand. I get it. It's an animated movie, but I think there are some really good, especially the connection between Optimus Prime and Megatron, or whatever their names were before. Yeah. And seeing their friendship and then kind of their separation throughout the movie, I think worked really well. Yeah, it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon of just like watching Transformers. Like, I really appreciated it was just Transformers. We don't have to worry about the human characters, what the military's doing in a Michael Bay movie, what Shia LaBeouf is doing, even though, like, I think we both like the first Transformers movie, and, like, it's very nostalgic for us.
Saw it in theaters when I was 7. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. And, like, I remember seeing Revenge of the Fallen in theaters and, like, seeing Megan Fox on screen. I was like, this is the best day of my life as an 8-year-old or 9-year-old or whatever the fuck it was. But, like, just having a movie centered on the Transformers on Cybertron was really refreshing, honestly, and I don't know why it's taken so long to have this happen.
They did a lot of cool things with kind of the legacy and just the overall story of Transformers, where they had these lower-level minor bots, and they don't have this cog that everyone needs to transform, so they're basically just serving the planet, trying to make sure that they have enough energy for everyone and ability to transform. I thought it was really cool to also strip back Orion Pax and D16, make them as friends, and eventually like what is to come with these characters, but I think that their dynamic throughout the film and watching their two different leadership qualities and styles kind of take shape, where Brian Tyree Henry has a couple of really good big monologue scenes, which is wild to kind of think of in an animated film, where he has some pretty good defining moments in the film. My biggest critique has to be Keegan-Michael Key and Scarlett Johansson, just because they're so iconic. For me, I couldn't see their characters. It was just I heard their voice and I only could think of Keegan-Michael Key and Scarlett Johansson. And then what you were saying, I think they kind of fumbled the marketing on this. I feel like they really try to gear it towards kids, and you get a lot of the kid-type humor with, I think, Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee, with the whole, like, badassatron, and just, like, kind of, like, forced jokes that felt a little too, like, I don't know, easy and child-friendly, to where it wasn't anything that's, like, I'm not, like, come on, move past this, get on to something else. Like, when you guys are trying to tell your serious story about these characters, it means something and it works, but when you try and dial it back to this child-friendly, like, oh, here's a little joke for the young ones in the crowd, it's like, come on, you're better than this. You don't need to do that. You don't need to play to the crowd. Just do what you're doing well and proceed with it. Yeah, that was honestly my really only flaw with the movie, is exactly what you just said there. Just for me, it really was just Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee, who, like, I like him a lot. Obviously, like Key and Peele growing up, like, it was hilarious. But yeah, just as Bumblebee, it was kind of broke up some of the more serious moments with a joke that I was just like, that wasn't that funny. It wasn't funny the first time, and it's
we don't need to keep doing this. Yeah, so overall, though, really fun movie. Just like very surprising for me, and I think for you too, just like how actually good it was.
I really dug it. The score, everything, it just almost everything worked for me. It was really just the humor and the Keegan-Michael Key and Scarlett Johansson performances. Steve Buscemi as Starscream is inspired casting.
Oh, so great.
When he popped up, I was like, oh, hell yeah, the movie has begun.
Elevated.
But yeah, Transformers 1, highly recommend. I know it's now out in streaming, so you're not going to be able to really catch it in the theaters, but do give it a watch. It is definitely worth your time. Another film I watched earlier this week was Woman of the Hour, directed by Anna Kendrick. This is her directorial debut. The film stars Anna Kendrick, Daniel Savato, Tony Hale, and Autumn Best. The synopsis: Cheryl Bradshaw, a single woman looking for a Cider on a hit 1970s TV show chooses a charming bachelor, Rodney Alcala, unaware that behind the man's gentle facade, he hides a deadly secret. This is a film based on true events. It follows Anna Kendrick's character on a dating show in the 70s with one of those bachelors that she has the potential to win a date with being a kind of infamous serial killer at the time. It was a really fun film. I don't think you've seen this.
I have not yet.
Yeah, it was a Netflix original that I was like, you know what, why not? Let's try it out. I really like Anna Kendrick. I want to see what she could do behind the camera. I like her comedic performances. I like A Simple Favor and kind of her more serious stuff, or her attempts at more serious tone in her acting. I really appreciate. The film was pretty good. I'd recommend it. It wasn't anything revolutionary. It didn't really blow me away. There's some really good scenes of tension that I would kind of compliment Anna Kendrick on, just being able to competently helm something and let something just play out on screen, and don't oversimplify it. Just let it happen and let the audience just feel it. It felt really, like I said, this is her directorial debut. She has a scene in a parking lot late at night, leaving the studio between Anna Kendrick's character and Daniel Zavato, and it's thrilling, and it's really well done. It felt kind of almost Fincher and Zodiac. I was like, wow, you're really like doing something here. Autumn Best was kind of also a standout. She really like surprised me. I don't know if I've ever seen her in anything else, at least lately, but she has a couple of really good scenes with Daniel Zavato too. I'd give it a recommendation. It's pretty good. Anna Kendrick, I'm excited to see what you make here in the future, and I hope you do continue to direct. But yeah, I'd recommend that to you too, Corey. It's on Netflix. It's a relatively quick and easy watch. It's, I think, shorter than 2 hours, so it's nice and quick. But
yeah, kind of fun. I don't know. I feel like this year we've gotten some cool like late night TV show movies with Late Night with the Devil
that
and
70s style and aesthetic. I really
appreciate that. Also, just want to give a shout out. I also really do like Anna Kendrick, and Pitch Perfect, such a fun movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's maybe an oversimplification, but like, that movie feels like the Mean Girls of our generation.
Yeah, that hit when we were in middle school, so that meant something. Like, the Cup song was everywhere.
Oh yeah, and like, it's still like, I rewatched it somewhat recently, and like, it's a very fun movie, and she's great in it. And I don't know, it's just I really like that movie.
That's my go-to if I'm on a plane. That's the movie I'm gonna watch, because the first time I saw it was on a plane, and I was like, wow, this movie's amazing. Why haven't I seen this yet? And now every time I go on a plane, I'm like, can I watch Pitch Perfect?
Yeah. No, fun movie. Love Anna Kendrick. So yeah, I definitely will try and check that one out here in the near future. Yeah, just a couple other things that I watched this week as part of catching up on things. I did see The Wild Robot, which Mason obviously talked about last week. I really enjoyed this movie. It's great. I'll echo everything that he said last week about it. The animation is great. I think this is one of the best like written animated movies I've seen in a long time. There's so many great lines in this movie from like Bill Nighy's character, which you mentioned. Pedro Pascal's character has some great lines. And that's something that I sometimes don't think about in an animated movie, is like how well it's written. But really stuck out to me there. The only really like issue I had with it was just in the third act. It goes for like kind of bigger action sequences and like typical third act, like, you know, climax finale things that was a lot bigger than the first two acts, which are kind of more quiet and just like, you know, between characters and very personal. It wasn't like I disliked it, the third act at all. It's just I preferred those first two acts a lot, and then the third act was like, oh, this is an enjoyable animated movie still, but yeah, really good. I think I prefer Inside Out 2 just like a hair over this movie as far as animated movies this year. I think Inside Out 2 just hit me a little bit more emotionally. But yeah, definitely watch Wild Robot if you haven't seen it. It's very good.
Love that movie. Did you, if you had to rank like a top 3 animated films, because I kind of know Inside Out 2 and Wild Robot are likely going to be in those top 2 slots, do you think Transformers 1, since we were talking about that earlier, do you think that has any kind of staying power and a potential third spot, or is there anything else from this year that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think that would be number 3 right now. Yeah. I honestly, I don't know if I've seen any other.
No. I feel like those have been the 3 heavy hitters like, for animation.
We got Moana 2 in a few weeks, which that could be there. But yeah, I feel like this year, I don't know if there's been a ton of other like big animated movies. So Wild Robot was great. I loved it. And then a show that I have really loved all the way through is The Penguin. We dropped a review of it on our Instagram, and I love this show. It's a spin-off of The Batman from 2022. It stars Colin Farrell, Kristen Milioti, and it really is just a deeper look into the crime, seedy underbelly of Gotham in this world. And I think this show worked really, really well as a spin-off. And I think it does exactly what a spin-off should do in telling its own story that really anybody can jump into. Like, even if you haven't seen The Batman, I think you can watch this show and be like, yeah, these are good characters. I'm interested in the story. But if you've seen The Batman, then it obviously builds on that world and expands on Gotham. There's little Easter eggs here and there, but it's not focused on that. The show isn't motivated by progressing this universe forward, but as a result of its good storytelling and its good characters, it does do that. Colin Farrell, I mean, he gives such a great performance, and it's so much more than just the makeup and prosthetic work that is still insane to me. Like, it doesn't look like him at all. Kristen Milioti gives such a great performance in this show. I think she is really the standout for me, a scene stealer. Yeah, and I'm not going to spoil anything just because it is only like a week out still, but the finale, I think, wraps everything up really well. It's emotional. I think it's a very fulfilling show, and especially thinking back on it and looking at earlier episodes, it's a really well-crafted show, and I'm so happy that it's here to bridge the gap between The Batman and The Batman 2, which is just the longest gap.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting so long for Batman Part 2, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm currently working my way through The Penguin. I haven't finished it yet. I finished episode 4, I believe, which is really Sophia-focused, Kristen Milioti focused, with her going into Arkham. And I love the show so far. I'm excited to finish the show. Sadly, I had kind of one of the big... I don't know if there's many reveals in the finale, but one of the big ones, regardless, was spoiled to me, so I kind of know where the show's kind of leading to, which I wish I didn't know. Spoilers don't typically kind of hinder my viewing experiences, I find, but this one I kind of wish I could have gone in without knowing. Really dig the show. Like I said, I finished episode 4. I don't really have any negatives for the show, except for within episode 4 I had a couple of issues or just kind of annoyances with some performances of some of the inmates at Arkham. It just felt a little hammed up or a little bit over the top, but other than that, everything's been so grimy and consistently just dark and well thought out. It is a perfect bridge, I think, for, like you said, Corey, to kind of keep us busy until we wait for the Batman 2. Again, what you said about it being a good entry point, you don't necessarily need to see the Batman. I started watching it by myself, and I had it on the TV, and then Allie walked in. She's like, "Oh, what's this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's the new Penguin show. Like, ties in with the new Batman movie," and she'd never seen it. And she sat down with me, and she's watched every episode. She had one question about, like, well, how did it flood? And I was like, oh, well, the Riddler in the movie. But, yeah, she's hooked on it just as much as I am, so hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up and finish it up here in the next couple of days, too, and be able to talk with you, at least, about spoilers.
Yeah, definitely. I want to dive into that. I think there's some great lines of dialogue in the last episode that I just, want to talk about. So hopefully next week or in the next coming weeks we can talk about the spoilers for that. Okay, one other little quick thing I wanted to mention is this short film that you can crack that open, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to do it.
I saw you wait.
I want to be nice about it.
You're thirsty over there.
Yeah.
Come on, drink up, boy. So, okay, this short film that my coworker actually recommended to me. We had just been at work. We'd been talking about movies like It Follows and Smile and just some of our favorite horror movies from recent years. And she had recommended this short film to me called Other Side of the Box, which right now is on YouTube. Sorry, and it's like 15 minutes long, so pretty quick watch through. But it's this really, really well made short film actually. And essentially, it is this couple that gets gifted this box from one of their friends. And I really don't want to go much more into it, but essentially it's just the same sort of idea of Smile and It Follows, where like people pass along like an entity or a demon or something like that to somebody else, and that's kind of inside of this box. And it was just a really cool short film that I really happy I've seen, and like I think it came out in like let me double check this. It was like 2018 it came out.
Oh, it's old. I thought it was more recent. Like
yeah, so
recently put out.
2018. But like I know it played at like South by Southwest and like won an award there, I believe. So I don't know. I this movie like sparked something where I was like, this could be like a feature-length movie. Like they could expand this out. Which with some short films they work great as short films, and then other ones you're like, oh, I could see something like longer there. But yeah, I don't know.
Almost like a Lights Out type thing.
Yeah,
from 2016.
Yep, exactly. So I don't know. I don't really want to give too much away because I went in not knowing much, and I think that's the best way to watch any new media. So other side of the box, it's on YouTube right now. Definitely check it out. I know you may check it out in next coming days, but I just wanted to give a shout out to that since it was kind of a slower week for new releases.
Moving on to some new releases, it is thankfully a big weekend at the box office.
Glicked Weekend. Or Wickadator.
I think Wickadator makes it sound like it's a burger or like a Wendy's thing, like the Baconator. You get the Wickadator.
A little bit, yeah.
But Wicked and Gladiator 2 are both coming out this weekend. Wicked being the one I am slightly a little bit more excited about. Wicked directed by John M. Chu, known for In the Heights, Crazy Rich Asians, and G.I. Joe Retaliation.
Hell yes.
Which is just, it's a wild track record looking at those three films next to each other. Film stars Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, and Jeff Goldblum. Elphaba, a misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Glinda, a popular girl, become friends at Shiz University, that's a wild name for a school, in the land of Oz. After an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz, their friendship reaches a crossroads. I am so excited for this movie. Like I said, being the one I'm more excited for this upcoming weekend. I've never seen the Broadway show. I am a massive Wizard of Oz fan, which is something I couldn't always say throughout my upbringing. I used to hate that movie aggressively as a child. And then I grew up and decided to stop being such a schmuck about it and just watch the movie again. And then it works for me. I love Wizard of Oz. I think that the place musicals have in my heart, it's huge. I love Singing in the Rain. I love La La Land and what that's been able to do to kind of reinvigorate, hopefully, hey, we can have musicals in theaters. Like, it's 2024, but we can still put music in theaters. And you can see that with In the Heights, directed by John M. Chu. I'm just excited to see something big and grand in theaters again. I can't wait. I love Cynthia Erivo. I think she's a great actress. I'm not terribly excited to see Ariana Grande act, but from everything I've heard, she's done great. It's just I'm not the biggest for musicians becoming actors, or just I like when people stick to what they're good at. But if she sells me on it, then it's just another thing for me to be excited about. Corey, what are you thinking about for Wicked?
Man, her performance in Victorious, which did you watch that growing up?
I did watch Victorious growing up, and I did have a massive crush on her.
Of course, yeah, she's great in Victorious.
Whoever played Jade scared me, but like in the right way. So fuck, this show is not safe for kids right now.
But yeah, I don't know. I was not like earlier this year. If you would have asked me, like I was not excited about this movie. I'd probably said I wouldn't have seen it in theaters. But I've actually gotten more excited about it over the past few weeks. I also love Wizard of Oz, obviously one of the most like important movies ever made, just from like a film standpoint. And I'm actually gonna rewatch that movie and then watch Oz the Great and Powerful this week, which I've never seen, but like Sam Raimi directed it, so it's kind of interesting.
Something's got to be good there.
Yeah, there's gonna be cool things. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard like obviously some of the songs from this, but like you, I've never seen the musical, whether it's like live or a filmed version of it. But I mean, it's got a good cast. It seems like everybody's really like committed to this movie, and it is a part one as well, which I don't think has been marketed very well at all. And this movie's like 2 hours and 40 minutes, which I'm not thrilled about.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think people may be like taken off guard that like when this movie ends that it's a part one. I don't even know how this movie ends from the stage play, but like
it's wild that it's a part one and it's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
It's insane.
That's kind of a hard sell. Honestly, if it's musical or if it's foreign language, something where it's going to take a lot of attention from me, that can kind of get grating. So I'm hoping that they find a way just to be fun. I don't know how if it's going to be singing every single word. I don't know how the stage the stage musical is kind of set up, or if there's like oh, we talk, and then we have a big musical number, and we talk, and then big musical number. I kind of hope it's that, just because I feel like for 2 hours and 40, it's easier to sell that to me, at least looking at it right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm over the moon. I can't wait for this film. I will be buying tickets for opening night for me, my wife, and her friend, because I'm just bringing all the women in my wife's friend group just so that they can have something to do.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. And like I said, I wasn't before, and I am now. So that's exciting to get more excited for a movie. And obviously the other half of Glicked or Gladiator or Wickadator. What do we say?
Wickadator 2.
Yeah. Wickadator 2, yeah. So we got Gladiator 2. Once again, directed by Ridley Scott. 24 years after the original movie. The original Gladiator, a little fun fact, the #1 movie in the world when you and I were born.
That's wild.
Mason and I were born...
2000s kids.
Yeah, Mason was born one day before I was, so Gladiator, #1 movie in the world at the time. I really love that movie. I think it's great. And I'm excited to rewatch it before seeing the second one, just because it's been a little bit since I've seen it. We've got Paul Mescal as Russell Crowe's son in the movie. It's filled out by a great supporting cast of Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, Connie Nielsen, Joseph Quinn. And, you know, I don't know. From the trailers, it looks like it's going to be a fun action movie with some cool set pieces. I don't know how much it's really going to tie into the original. I genuinely don't know. But I'm actually very stoked for this movie, and a lot of the early reviews have been like pretty positive on it, which you know, I didn't know if I needed this movie, but I am more excited now just hearing that. And Paul Mescal is somebody who I haven't seen in a lot of things. Like I haven't seen After Sun, I haven't seen the show Normal People with him, but I've heard is really good. But I'm excited to see him take on a big lead role, and hopefully this movie is just delivers something that is really enjoyable.
Yeah, I love the first Gladiator. It was one of my older brother's favorite films, so we watched that a lot growing up. I was always really excited. Scratch that. I wasn't excited. I'm excited once they announced the cast. The cast is insane. The concept for Gladiator 2, I feel like, has always just been like on the back burner somewhere, and it always just got mentioned growing up, and I was like, the further we get away from the original one, I just don't care anymore. So I would go in saying I don't care about this movie, but the cast is insane. So I'm stoked for that and that alone. I have pretty low expectations just because it's not anything I don't need this second film. I do think that there are some potentially really great things that could happen with this, and some standout action scenes and performances from Paul Mescal and Pedro Pascal. It's hard saying those names back to back. Paul Mescal and Pedro Pascal. That's hard. And Denzel Washington, from what I have heard, his performance is potentially Oscar worthy. So I'm excited. I hope that Ridley Scott can kind of continue on a decent track record. And if this is a good film for him, thank God, because he's kind of hit and miss. I did really love The Last Duel. I know you loved The Last Duel. The Martian's great. I never saw House of Gucci. Don't think I'm going to.
That and Napoleon have kind of been...
Yeah, so he's hit and miss, so I'm really hoping that this is in the hit category, or hit column, so he can kind of continue on with some sort of, I don't know, maybe Gladiator 3 is in our future. I don't know. I don't know how well this is going to perform. I think it could do big numbers, but going up against Wicked, I think it's going to be an interesting week at the box office in terms of dollars and who's going to win this weekend.
Hopefully they both make a lot of money, just for theater's sake.
I feel like there's not a large amount of overlap between those audiences. They kind of have almost polar opposite audiences, so this might be some good counter-programming, having them both released this week. Also, I think this is going to Netflix, I believe. Is it Blitz going to Netflix?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus,
yep.
Which is directed by Steve McQueen, which I did not know. I saw that it was showing limitedly in a couple theaters around us, and I was like, Steve McQueen made this. Why haven't I heard anything? Steve McQueen, obviously director of 12 Years a Slave, the highly underrated and underseen Widows, as well as, I think, my favorite film of his, Shame, starring Saoirse Ronan, I think is the right way to say her name, and then Harris Dickinson. Stories of a group of Londoners during the German bombing campaign of the British capital during World War II. I haven't caught it in theaters. As we have had this drier week of releases, I've been looking at a lot of showtime just for anything. Just I'm like, I want to go to the theaters. I don't really want to see Red One, so what else can I see? Well, there's The Blitz, and I'm like, what is this? And that's how I found out that Steve McQueen made this, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I should be paying more attention to this movie than I originally was. Corey, are you going to try and catch this one, you think? Or what's
I
the
do
game
definitely
plan?
want to see it. I know I want to try and see this one. There's a few award season movies. This one and A Real Pain also, which I don't think we've mentioned last week or anything, but that's the Jesse Eisenberg directed movie with Kieran Culkin as well. So both of those are kind of in that, like, they may get some awards consideration. I may try and catch them in theaters. But if I don't, I definitely will watch it on Apple TV Plus just because I do love Steve McQueen. Shame is a very very polarizing movie. I would say it's not a mainstream movie. I'll say
It's not
that.
an easy watch.
No, not an easy watch. Very depressing. 12 Years a Slave, obviously a Best Picture winner, and is very powerful as well.
Also not an easy watch.
Not an easy watch. Widows, probably his most mainstream movie.
Yeah.
But I like you said, I think that movie's really underrated.
Amazing performances throughout that entire...
Yeah.
All of these movies that you listed, but Widows is insane.
Yeah, really, really good. So I may try and catch that one. Another one that's dropping on Netflix is The Piano Lesson. That kind of falls into that same awards consideration. I know it's been playing in limited release for a bit, and now it's dropping on streaming. It's directed by Malcolm Washington, who is the son of Denzel Washington. He's the brother of John David Washington, who was also a star of the movie, along with Samuel L. Jackson and Danielle Deadwyler. I don't know much about this movie, but just from the synopsis, follows the lives of the Charles family as they deal with their family legacy and deciding what to do with their family piano, which doesn't really give much, but I don't know. I mean, just from the cast and like the Malcolm Washington directing this, like that interests me a lot. So I'm excited to check this one out. This is, another one that I always make a list every award season of like movies I want to check off. And I want to definitely check this one out. Are you gonna watch this one anytime soon?
I'm pretty excited about it, honestly, just from the family that is basically making this entire movie.
Yeah.
You have John David Washington, Malcolm Washington behind the camera. You have me sold with that alone. Anything with
Right.
John David Washington, I want to see. I was just trying to do some research because I believe that this is a play written by August Wilson, which, if that is the case, that'd be kind of awesome just because his dad Denzel directed Fences, which is an August Wilson play. So kind of having a lot of these more play to film adaptations, which Fences was a big one for me that really worked and I was a big fan of. I haven't even seen the trailer for The Piano Lesson. I know nothing about it. I know that synopsis that you read because that is the only synopsis I've ever found. And I kind of want to just sit down and go into it blind. It'll be on Netflix, so to be able to catch that pretty quick and easy would be nice, but I'm excited to kind of sit down. I feel like, Netflix has a decent track record, not with all of their original releases, but around awards season, like when Ma Rainey's Black Bottom came out, and I was like, whoa, like this movie is insane.
Yeah.
I'm excited for The Piano Lesson. Hopefully it can kind of fill that void and be Netflix's saving grace in terms of awards push for this year.
Yeah, they got that. I feel like Amelia Perez, that's their other big one.
They had May December last year, which pissed me off, and so it's so hit and miss just with everything Netflix puts out. But I'm always really interested to see what they're kind of touting as their awards push film. So I'll definitely be sitting down to watch The Piano Lesson, and I'm gonna go in, I think, just as blind as I possibly can, knowing basically the synopsis ahead of me. But aside from those films, a big TV show is dropping, I believe, tonight on HBO Max. That is Dune Prophecy, starring Emily Watson, Mark Strong, Olivia Williams, and Travis Fimmel. TV series is set in the Dune universe, which centers on the lives of the Bene Gesserit. I believe it is a prequel by a large margin, set back in not necessarily the early days of the Bene Gesserit, but just kind of working on the way how they're structured and how they kind of every time you show me where we're at in the show, I always laugh.
Every time. Yeah, I just typed up how many minutes we've been recording just as like a benchmark, and I try and make them laugh every time.
Every time I see it, I'm just like trying to just don't laugh. But I just need to talk about that. But Dune Prophecy, I'm excited for. I need to finish The Penguin before I can get started really on this show. I'm not a 3-show person. I need to watch the one thing I'm watching, finish it, and then move on. But I will be moving on to Dune Prophecy. I love the Denis Villeneuve Dune movies so much. The first one was a knockout. The second one is my second favorite film of all time. everything about those two films made me love this world so much that it pushed me to go back and start reading the original 6 Dune books written by Frank Herbert. I love this world. I'm excited to see what this show has to offer in terms of kind of exploring different elements of the Bene Gesserit and kind of filling in different gaps within the Dune films directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'm not worried necessarily because Denis Villeneuve's not involved in it. It's just I think that there's a lot of great things that you can see with the Penguin and having Matt Reeves work on both that and the Batman and having his touch on both. I'm worried that we might lose that with Dune Prophecy. I'm hoping it's good. I've heard mostly good things. Corey, what do you think of Dune Prophecy coming out?
Yeah, I mean, echoing your thoughts. I love both Dune movies, Denis Villeneuve's, and I'm very excited for the show just to learn more about the Bene Gesserit. And I think this is kind of an interesting play for Warner Brothers, especially because I think with Dune 2 coming out so early in the year, that's always risky for award season stuff. So, if a lot of award season things come out in November and December. So I think with Dune Prophecy coming out, this could maybe remind some awards voters of Dune 2 and hopefully get that back in the conversation. I don't know if that will have any credibility at all. That's just kind of my thought process of like, get that back in people's minds as people are watching the show and be like, oh yeah, maybe I should rewatch Dune 2, get that back. Hopefully Denis Villeneuve gets a Best Director nomination. I want him to so bad.
I want Javier Bardem to get a Best Supporting for Stilgar. Yeah. Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, so I think that hopefully could have a small effect on that. But yeah, I'm really excited to watch it. I'll probably watch the first episode tonight after the Bengals and Chargers are done playing. So moving now into the physical media roundup, which we try and keep alive every week. This week, we have the very Walmart is having their Black Friday deals that end today, which is November 17th, which is really weird. I don't like that they do that like a week early.
It's kind of I hated Black Friday as an idea just because like Thanksgiving I want to be with my family, but when you and I would go Black Friday shopping on Friday, and we'd hit up like Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Best Buy, like we're checking everything just to see what like types of movies are releasing and what stores are carrying and what deals they have, and it just slowly has dwindled year to year, and it's getting into the a smaller kiosk every year, and now I don't think that there's going to be honestly anything in stores for most of them, and then with that they put all their deals online. So it's like, well, you don't even have to go to the store, which there's conveniences within that, but there's nothing better than going someplace, or at least when you're movie shopping and buying physical media, when you go in and you find it. Like you find a film that you've been looking for or something you're excited about. It's in good packaging. It's at a good price. You're like, oh, fuck.
It's sexy as shit,
it's hot. Dude. And I can't explain it to anyone else. It was... Honestly, this is how I knew Corey would be such a good friend of mine, is when we went movie shopping and you and I are immediately like checking the slipcover, slide the slipcover off, looking at the like adhesive on the spine of the Blu-ray and like, is that going to peel off weird? And it's it's the way weird snobs with wine are. It's just the way we are with film packaging. So trying to explain that to other people, they're like, wow, you should be checked in someplace. Like, you are done. But yeah, that's my rant on them fucking... handling Black Friday, and also the physical media rollout of the past year has been just absolutely heinous. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of like boutique labels still putting out good stuff, but finding it in the stores, like you said, is so. I love the hunt of trying to find something. But yeah, so with those Walmart deals, I don't love ordering things online. I try and avoid it, but I was just looking online before we started recording today, and I found a couple things. Peacemaker Season 1. Which I really enjoy. I think that show is really, really fun. That was $12.99 on Blu-ray. And then I also ordered the Air Force One 4K Blu-ray digital steelbook, which I think was like $17 or something. And I love that movie. I think like it's such a great like 90s action movie that is just so like aware of what it is and is so perfect in executing that. Like, it's just so great. So, and the artwork on the steelbook is great. So I was really happy to get both of those. And unfortunately, they just don't have them in stores. So I had to get them online.
This past week, I was able to pick up Civil War on 4K and Blu-ray. That is, I think I can speak for Corey and I both, one of our top movies of this past year.
For sure.
Really, it might be I think it is my favorite Alex Garland film. That Ex Machina, Annihilation to a degree I really like, but Civil War was really a wake up, and it was just such a it was polarizing, but also just a paralyzing film experience. Just watching that, it was terrifying. And there's a couple of shots in the film that I just consistently remember and think of, like a man's just getting lit on fire. I remember that scene happening, and you and I were like, ugh. I could tell, I was like, we're going to talk about this specific shot after the movie.
Jesse Plemons in that movie.
It's so terrifying. So that film is definitely a standout from the year. I love it. I had to get it. I knew it was a matter of just when I was going to get it, not if. But I picked that up this past week. I also pre-ordered the Steelbook for Terrifier 3 because I think I'm the only one on this podcast that is a fan of those movies. But I violently love those movies because they are insane. I think that they're just such a good casual sit down and watch for some people, just because casual is a weird word to use to describe that. It's not an entry level film to watch, but for me it's such a put it on in the background, have a good time. Oh wow, someone's getting cut in half from crotch to face like crazy. I'm gonna watch that part, but
yeah, just not quite my thing. I will not be pre-ordering the Steelbook. If I, as a collector, if I found them for like $5 someday, like all three of them, like I'd definitely buy them. But yeah, I know you like those movies a lot more than I do.
Yeah, so pre-ordered Terrifier 3. I will now have all three of those films, and I am so excited to make you watch a marathon with those three.
I'm very drunk for that.
That's fine. That can be arranged.
I suppose.
I did also order the amazing Steelbook for Transformers 1 because I'm a big fan of that movie. I'm really kind of kicking myself for not seeing that one in theaters. I tried. Theater shit out on me, so I had to go home, but I really should have tried to follow up and try and get that in theaters. The animation is great. I can't wait to rewatch that film. But yeah, 2 Steelbooks this week and a 4K Blu-ray. I can't complain. I'm trying to find more and more each week just so that we can keep talking about physical media on this, but it's like, all right, well, what do I want to spend my money on right now? It's like, all right. But Civil War I'm happy to add to my collection as well as the other 2. But so moving on from what we have purchased lately, we're going to look at what releases this week, which kind of what Corey mentioned last week. It kind of alternates between big release week and then just nothing, just radio silence. And this is one of those big releases. We got Beetlejuice getting released on Blu-ray and 4K. Godzilla -1 finally coming out. Speak No Evil, the very, very highly touted by my mother film Regan comes out on Blu-ray, as well as Terry loved Regan. And we got the Killer's Game, as well as House of the Dragon Season 2, and some re-releases for some new updated 4Ks for Terminator and North by Northwest. Corey, are there any movies on this list that you're looking to purchase pretty quickly here?
Man, Godzilla -1 for sure. There's a Steelbook with like a slipcover over top of it that is so fucking sexy, and I need that movie.
Yeah.
An Oscar-winning movie, which makes me so happy to say that. I definitely will try and find that one. I don't know. I don't even know like where to find them anywhere because like Barnes & Noble sometimes has them, but like I don't know. I really want to get that one. And then House of the Dragon Season 2, I really want to get. Hopefully, like I don't know if they'll have any Black Friday sales for it since it's like a week before.
It'll be new. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like Season 2 of House of the Dragon. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, so I will definitely pick that up at some point. And then the other one that sticks out is North by Northwest on 4K. I love that movie. It's maybe like it's probably my second favorite Hitchcock movie behind Rear Window.
Okay.
But the thing that bothers me is a lot of 4Ks coming out are just the 4K and digital and not 4K and Blu-ray and digital.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can only get the Steelbook that has all 3 formats. I wish they just like put all of them in one release and gave it to you instead of like 4K digital and then Blu-ray and digital.
Yeah, I wish they just standardized it. This is the package we're putting out. You can buy it as a whole entity of these 3 different viewing platforms or viewing versions. I'm surprised that DVD is still like a widely produced thing because I remember when I only collected DVDs. And then when Blu-ray started coming out, I was so against buying Blu-rays. And then my brother bought me 30 minutes or less on Blu-ray, and I was like, "Well, fuck. All right, that's it. Now I'm buying Blu-rays." And I got rid of all of my DVDs thinking that DVDs would just come and go and they'd be gone in a blink of an eye, but DVDs are still here. And it's like, well, now 4Ks are coming out, and I feel like Blu-rays are kind of getting forgotten. But I'm like, well, if Blu-rays are getting forgotten, why the fuck are DVDs still here? Like, it's kind of a weird time for being a physical media collector, especially with stores dropping out. But I don't know, it's odd. I think I'm gonna be trying to grab that Godzilla -1 steelbook that you were talking about. I don't think I'm gonna be buying Beetlejuice. I did watch that in theaters. I enjoyed it enough. I love the original. It's not anywhere near as good as the original, obviously, but it was still a good time in the theaters. I will maybe have to appease my mother and watch Regan at some point because she was just like, we should go see Regan. You need to see Regan. It's right around election time, too. She's like, we should go see Regan. I'm like, okay, Mom, settle down. Killer's Game looked like a fucking joke, so I don't even know what the hell that is.
Let's get drunk and watch that sometime.
That might be, that would be a good, like, samurai cop type.
Ooh,
just like, let's get drunk and watch a shitty movie.
Yep.
House of the Dragon I've never seen, so I have no idea. Nor would I be buying season 2. But that Terminator 4K is also sexy, so maybe down the road I'll end up actually picking that up. But right now, that Godzilla -1 is the one on the forefront of my brain.
Yes, for sure. Moving into some movie news. Not like a ton of big stuff this week. We did want to mention the first trailer for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
Not the Dead Reckoning Part 2.
Not Dead Reckoning Part 2, which that's always going to make me angry. That Dead Reckoning Part 1.
The fact that I own Dead Reckoning Part 1 and it says that, and then it's just, Final Reckoning.
Final,
like, all right,
which, like, I like both, like Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, like, cool titles, but just take that Part 1 out of the last movie. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. I think it is one of the most consistent franchises that's still running.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Mission Impossible 2, which is I think most people would say is the worst one, is still like a fine action movie. It's just it doesn't get up to the heights of the others.
That and it's so different. Like those first three, I love my favorite is the first one. The very like Brian De Palma, paranoia filled spy thriller. I love that film. And then you get Mission Impossible 2 that is so wildly different and so in your face with the action.
John Woo's doves.
Doves fucking everywhere. Slow motion, like firing at each other. It's over the top. But like each film, I think, kind of gradually has gradually established what the new kind of formula is for a Mission Impossible film. I loved Ghost Protocol. I really liked Rogue Nation. I think Fallout is maybe the best aside from the first one. And then I really did enjoy Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think I liked it a little bit less than you, but I am very excited for Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, whether it is the final film in the franchise, TBD on that. If it does have a $400 million production budget or whatever they're potentially saying, then that's fucking insane. And maybe they should stop making these. But I'm a big fan. I'll be seeing it. I'm so happy that this trailer consisted of maybe 5 different shots of Tom Cruise running. That is so perfect. Corey, what did you think of the trailer?
Yeah, I really liked it. It was interesting with this trailer. There wasn't. I feel like with a lot of the last first trailers for the last few movies, there's been the shot of the stunt of that movie. The last one being the motorcycle one, and then you have the helicopter one in Fallout, and then the plane in Rogue Nation. This movie, there's a lot of different shots of cool looking stunts, and I'm sure Tom Cruise is still out there doing all of it. Mm-hmm. But it just didn't have that shot where I was like, oh fuck, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean that's hard to top what they've done at this point.
That and I feel like when those other movies were being made, you heard about them getting ready to do those to film those stunts. So you kind of had those going into oh, I can't wait to see that. With this one, I know that they've, that plane stuff, they shot, a little promo with him on top of the plane and stuff, and I'm I don't know if that's the big stunt, or is there going to be, this might just be, you know what, fuck it, this is our last Mission Impossible movie, Tom Cruise, you're alive still, let's see if we can change that, we're gonna put you in, 80 different random stunts, they're going to be insane, we're going to do them for real, and then you can retire from this franchise. But, like you said, I love this franchise, I think it is remarkably consistent, It's always a great time in the theaters. I'm always excited for the new upcoming Mission Impossible film. I can't wait. Another part of the movie news from this past week, something that I actually really enjoyed, probably more so than Corey, was the announcement of a host for the 97th Academy Awards. Conan O'Brien will be hosting the Oscars, which, I don't know. Typically, if I had to say, I would want more someone involved in the film industry, a film personality. I know that they've talked about what if Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds hosted it together? I'm like, God, that'd be so fun. But Conan O'Brien kind of keeping in the tradition of let's just have a TV show host do it. We had Jimmy Kimmel. He's done it 4 times now.
Too many. 4 too many, or 5 too many. Whatever the fuck. Fuck Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, Corey hates Jimmy Kimmel. I have, like, no feeling towards Jimmy Kimmel. I thought he did fine hosting for, like, 2 of the 4 ceremonies. Those early 2 hosting jobs he did had so many just never-ending, just unavoidable bullshit bits that were just unfunny. They built to nothing, and they just cut away from the award show that we're here for and just padded time for something that's already going to be at least 3 hours, making it 4.5. So I'm excited by Conan. I like Conan. Conan is, of the late night hosts or TV hosts for talk shows, Conan is my favorite. I think he is very witty. He's funny. He's more charming. I think he does a really good job of conducting interviews and not just like Jimmy Fallon, where he's like, I'm just going to let you sound amazing and I'm going to laugh at everything you say nonstop because I'm Jimmy Fallon. Like, oh, hi, that's great. Wow, you're perfect. Wow, you're so beautiful. Oh, so good. Wow, it feels so good from back there. Oh, I can't wait for Conan O'Brien instead of someone like Fallon, Kimmel. I would prefer a film industry professional, but you know what? I'll take Conan.
Yeah, I don't know. I personally don't like any of the recent late night talk show hosts. I don't think any of them are funny. I think all of their jokes are just very like base level and just so lazy. I think it's changed so much from like the years of like, obviously we weren't fucking alive, but like Johnny Carson and like Letterman and Leno, like back in the day, of people like making that appointment television. Like, I need to watch like who they're interviewing, and now it's just like, who gives a fuck who Jimmy Kimmel's interviewing? Who cares who's on Fallon? Like, nobody cares. And I personally don't like Conan all that much, and I hope he does a good job. I really do. But I just, like you said, I wish somebody like, I love John Mulaney. I wish he would host the Oscars. Yeah. I wish somebody
I want an entertainer to host, not someone who has that like. Yeah, you have a talk show, you've had that ability to just kind of engage with an audience and run a show, but I want someone who's going to command. Like, I would love it if Hugh Jackman came, someone that can be like sing, someone that is like a multifaceted entertainer, not just, I read a teleprompter and I tell you some decent jokes and you laugh at them, and then I want someone that can put on a show as opposed to just get us through awards.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I don't know. Kind of for a host, I think I'm looking for somebody that can do like a decent opening monologue and then serve as a transition from commercials. Because I'm here to watch people give their acceptance speeches for the awards they're winning. I don't give a fuck what the host is saying about these dumb little bits. I don't care. Like, I'm here for the Oscars. I'm here for the awards. And like, I want them to serve as a transition piece of getting me to and from different presenters. I don't want them to be the star of the show.
And I think you would agree with this. We really did prefer those couple of years where they didn't have a defined host. Mm-hmm. And it was just, you know what, we'll have these kind of celebrities on stage. We'll do a bunch of reunions. We'll have a bunch of different stars, different types of athletes and comedians and actors up on stage. And we'll just transition from award to award. And I feel like it was seamless. And it made the show move and like clip along. It felt faster, and we weren't wasting time on bits that were unfunny. It was just like, oh wow, we have like this going on, like this. It was to be able to like last year or 2 years ago when we saw Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger up on stage and fuck Batman. Like,
yeah, what
do you do to you? Like, I like that. I hope that they can kind of keep that as a running joke and a running thing throughout the next and upcoming Oscars. I hope in years to come that we move more towards a film-based celebrity star entertainer as opposed to a TV show talk show host, which again, I do like Conan, so I'm a little bit more excited than Corey. But moving on, we also did want to highlight, we have touched on this before in the past, but an update on the new Nolan film. Lupita Nyong'o, Anne Hathaway, as well as Zendaya have all joined the cast. This is becoming just a knockout lineup, just an insane cast. The Universal film is still untitled. Nolan has written and will direct the feature, which will release on July 17th, 2026. I can't wait. I love Lupita Nyong'o. Easily one of my favorite actresses. Loved her in A Quiet Place Day 1 from earlier this year. That movie was kind of a little bit of a revelation. Loving the Quiet Place films, but I don't know if I need a prequel or an otherworld story. I'd really like John Krasinski and his family's dynamic and to pursue or follow Emily Blunt and her kids. But Lupita Nyong'o's a knockout in everything she does. Good little reteaming with Christopher Nolan and Anne Hathaway as well, coming back from Interstellar. Dark Knight Rises as well. He's never worked with Zendaya, but she's kind of becoming a hot actress from today, and I'm excited to see what she's able to do in a Chris Nolan film. I can't wait for whatever this film ends up being.
I don't even really care at this point what it is, because like this cast is awesome. Like Nolan, I trust to do something interesting. So, yeah, very, very excited for this movie. And then going into our little movie rewind that we do, we're sticking with last week we did 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri from 2017. We're actually sticking in that same year. 1 week after that movie was released, Justice League came out, which is officially, look on IMDb, still directed by Zack Snyder, but it's Joss Whedon. It's Justice League.
Yeah.
This movie is just infamous now because it obviously led to the Snyder Cut, which we both obviously like so much more.
Yeah.
This movie, I remember seeing it in theaters, and like obviously it's exciting to see the Justice League live action for the first time, and like I had a fine enough time with it. Like I like a lot of the cast in the movie, like playing these superheroes, so it was fun to see. But you could just feel like something was a little bit off, where you're like, this doesn't feel like a complete vision.
Yeah.
It feels like somebody stepped in and took over, which is exactly what happened. After Zack Snyder had some family tragedy happen, Joss Whedon came in and finished the movie and added a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff that's just strange. And like you'll watch it with the Snyder Cut, like, wow, everything Whedon did was so much worse than anything that was done by Zack Snyder.
Yeah. I remember just like the infamous reshoots for this film, because those were just like never ending, and the whole mustache debacle because Henry Cavill was filming Mission Impossible Fallout and they wouldn't let him shave his mustache, and then the film Justice League opens with fucking vertical footage of Superman, of a kid recording Superman, and you have his just top lip in full display of its like awkward CGI, and it's like, wow, you guys really decided to put this at the beginning. This is how you thought to enter this movie, which I don't hate the movie. I appreciate at least that attempt to try and like, you know what, we've had the Man of Steel and he was looked at as a threat because he was a newcomer to this world and terrible things kind of came. But I thought that the film tried to make an attempt to be like, you know what, Superman's a hopeful figure and he's a happy figure. Look, he's talking to kids. And I'm like, you know what, I kind of appreciate the attempt here. But otherwise, like, the CGI lip and everything was just laughable. And then the movie gets kicked off and Ben Affleck... I love Ben Affleck's Batman in Batman v Superman and the Snyder Cut. In this film, I was like, wow, Joss Whedon really just fucked your script. He was like, you know what? He's going to make quips all the time because Batman... funny guy. Like his battle with Clark midway through the movie where he's like, do you bleed? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm bleeding. Oh, that's bleeding. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, that's not, I don't know. There was no specialness to this movie. Like, when you watch the first Avengers, it's like, wow, that's Cap, that's Iron Man, that's Thor, like, and Hulk. They're all coming together. Like, you feel it. Like, that feels like something. It has a weight to it. Watching this film, it felt unearned, and it was just like, oh, like, it didn't feel like the Justice League had united. The whole Unite the Seven never happened. It didn't feel like that big weight of, wow, that's our team. It was just like, oh, like, yeah, these guys are playing dress up, and this is supposedly the Justice League, and wow, that's great. And Ezra Miller's the Flash. Everyone loves that still. Isn't that great? Wow.
It's also just wild to me, like, that in like the ending of this movie, I guess spoilers for both Justice League movies if you haven't seen them by now, but, like the ending scene in the movie where they're trying to get what do they call the mother box?
Yeah, the mother
box. Which is just dumb in both versions. I don't care. It's stupid. I know it's from the comics, but shut the fuck up. That's dumb.
He said, I want to make enemies.
Like, in Joss Whedon's Justice League, he chose to have the Flash, like, pushing a Russian family in a truck.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the Snyder Cut, you see Flash, like, reversing time to like save the Justice League and save the day. Like, which version do you think is better? Like, how is that? Like, what is the like comparison there. Like that's so much cooler in the Snyder Cut. And Joss Whedon's like, let me have him push a family
He's
in a truck.
gonna really just worry about this family this entire part.
What is this? Like, why was that choice made?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just such a whatever movie looking back. I remember I was excited to see it. I remember watching it and being like, you know what? It wasn't horrible, so I think that's a win. I've never gone back since having the Snyder Cut. I've never been like, I should go back and rewatch 2017 Justice League. It's, I want to watch Justice League. I'm going to watch this chunk of the Snyder Cut or all of the Snyder Cut because I do much prefer that to, obviously, the 2017 cut. I don't know. It's an uneven movie. It has, I think, all the best beats you can see overlap in both movies. You can see the best parts of Justice League 2017 are the ones that remain in the Snyder Cut.
Yep.
Obviously, the Joss Whedon additions aren't there, and you're like, wow, this makes sense. Zack Snyder maybe was a better fit for this than Joss Whedon, and maybe if a situation was different, he would have been able to finish this and we would have gotten something a little bit better. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I love the cast, like Jason Momoa as Aquaman, Ray Fisher. I'm so happy in the Snyder Cut that they gave him more, but in 2017 Justice League, he's fucking nothing. They give him no characterization. It means nothing. He's such a just like add-on to the cast and to the crew in the 2017 cut. So I'm happy that we are lucky enough to live in a world where the Snyder Cut happened. Do I think something like this will ever happen again? I don't know. It was so wild. I didn't think that was a real day when they announced that the Snyder Cut was coming to HBO Max.
Oh, for sure. Like, and I think like people have tried now, like, give us the David Ayer Suicide Squad cut. I'm like, I don't know if I need that. This was, like you said, a very like once in a lifetime type of thing where it's like, all right, everybody wants this, and like we know that it's there. The footage is there. So it's like, just give us this. And I'm so happy we have it. And there's really no reason to watch this movie over the Snyder Cut.
I don't own this one on Blu-ray or 4K. I got rid of that.
I do.
I know you do.
I want to, just as like a piece of film history, just to have this movie and be like, this existed as the only Justice League movie ever at one point.
At one point for like 5-ish years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years, and it's like I have a nice like Target digibook of it with a lenticular cover, so I'm like, that's kind of nice.
He's frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for that. So yeah, a very interesting throwback to 2017 when this came out.
Yeah, it's just wild. I don't own this movie. I own the Snyder Cut. I will likely never watch this movie again, but I do remember like being in high school, and when this movie is coming out, I'm like, oh, I can just go see Justice League. I already used to watch the animated show. Like, this is going to be sweet. So it is kind of bittersweet in the way that the film ended up, the story of the making of the film, and the fact that we have a superior film that came out that basically has the same exact skeleton as the 2017 Justice League that is much better than the 2017 Justice League. So I don't know. It's interesting, but like I said, bittersweet. Happy to talk about it, though. We do want to, again, thank you for sitting and having some drinks with us on our 3rd episode of Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast. If you have time, if you have an Instagram, be sure to follow us for more in-depth movie reviews and movie news. That is at SlateNight_podcast. I actually write a lot better than I speak. So if you are like, what the fuck is this dude yapping about? Just read my review, and it's usually, I think, to a degree, better than what I'm actually saying. In a world of film, it's not just about what happens on the screen, but like I said in the past, it's always about who's sitting next to you in the theater. Corey, thank you for sitting down with us. Thank you for drinking with me, buddy. Thank you for talking with me, buddy. From all of us here at Slate Night, the Film Fan Podcast, I'd like to say that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Happy Glicked Week, everybody.
Crazy.